Okay, now we step into the second part of this event, and we are going to have tonight a panel regarding design and sustainability. Designers are projecting and designing our life by designing the space where we live, our homes, hotels, cars, boats, and any public space. So their activity is very much related to social and to lifestyle. And I do believe they are an avant-garde, and they are the sensitive interpreter of our lives and our future. So I also think that they could play a very important role in this subject of sustainability. So I would like now to pass to introduce you Joseph Grima, which is editor of Domus, that will be the moderator of the panel.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction and for the opportunity to discuss such a meaningful and important and critical subject. Environment and sustainability. If we were to look at the panel this evening, one would actually think that possibly it's a concern exclusively of white middle-aged men. And actually that's possibly true, because we were probably the ones who caused most of the problems in the first place. So maybe it's a good thing that we're actually here to discuss it. But I do know that the panel's going to be compensated tomorrow by a completely different point of view. But I think that this is a rare opportunity, as you pointed out before, that to discuss some really urgent topics with some of the people who do actually have the possibility of making a real change. And I think it's really great. What I think is really great is that we have representatives, we have policymakers, we have people who are parts of governments, we have designers, architects, a lot of very influential people. And I think that this is really the question today, is how we're actually going to do something. And while of course, talks like this are incredibly important, and this is really, I think, an opportunity also to develop some sort of strategy that crosses boundaries and brings together different fields. So I'm going to ask each of you to give a short introduction of maybe 3 or 4 minutes, just kind of bringing your ideas to the table. And I think the most important thing is dialogue and exchange, because so much has already been said by each of us about our own thoughts. And I think the most important thing and the rarest thing is actually the opportunity of exchanging some of these ideas. So I think if we could try to have a lively but relatively condensed debate, that would be the most useful thing. So I'll just give a brief introduction to the speakers who are with me this evening. To my left, we have Minister Corrado Clini. He is the Minister of the Environment, Land and Sea, and he's been in this role since November 16th, 2011. So relatively recently, but long enough to have actually got into this. Possibly too long already. He'd been previously Director General since 1990. And from 1978 to 1989, he was an occupational doctor and organized and managed the public service and laboratory for labor hygiene, medicine, and safety of Venice, Porto Marghera. So in fact, one of the most challenged environments, industrial environments in Italy. And having conducted over 150 environmental and epidemiological research studies in energetic, chemical, and metallurgical systems, so a lot of research over the years. I'm going to then Marcel Wanders. I need to skip forward. Marcel Wanders, who many of the people who regularly frequent the Salone Mobile will know, is a product and interior designer who drew international recognition for his knotted chair produced by Droog Design in 1996. I certainly remember it being a very inspiring project for me as a student. His work is ubiquitous. He designs for leading international companies such as Floss, Alessi, Puma, KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines, MAC Cosmetics, Cappellini, B&B Italia, and many others. He's exhibited extremely widely, and his work has been included in many very significant design collections around the world. We then have, to the left of Marcel, Giulio Cappellini, who since 1979 has been a Milanese architect and has worked in the spirit of aims of man in continuous renewal. I think that's a topic we should hear more about this evening. Over the years, his work has turned towards design, proposing a personal interpretation of contemporary design, both for the global brand of Cappellini and as the art director of other important design brands such as Alcantara. Then to the left of Giulio, we have, I'm going to, Cyril Muller, who joined external relations as, I'm sorry, EXT is external relations. Okay, I see. I have EXT here on. As vice president in November 2011. Previously, he was the director for banking and debt management of the World Bank Treasury, responsible for modernizing the financial products available for member countries and providing public debt management advisory services. From 2005 to 2010, he served as the World Bank's special representative for Europe based in Paris. His main responsibilities were managing the dialogue with European governments and institutions. Mr. Muller held a range of positions across the World Bank since 1991, with an external break in service from 2000 to 2005. Mr. Muller holds economics degrees from Neuchâtel University in Switzerland and for New York University. And finally, Stefano Giovannoni, another face that many of us have seen in many different occasions here at the Salone. He was born in La Spezia in 1954 and graduated from the Faculty of Architecture in Florence in 1978 and lives and works in Milan. He's taught and conducted research in several universities around Italy, and he's an extremely prolific designer. His work as an interior and industrial designer and architect has been put into production with companies such as Alessi, Amore Pacific, Arzana, Bisazza, Sederoth, and we're only at C, so that gives you a sense of how many companies there are on that list. And some of his most successful and best-known products include Girotondo and Mami. So, as I said, an extremely qualified panel capable of giving us, I think, very diverse perspectives on the problem of the environment today. And so with no further ado, I would ask Ministro Clini to give us a few words on the topic.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much again, Alcantara, for this opportunity. I want to mention two different experiences we had in the last years, just to present what we believe is a key issue for the future. In 2003, the Chinese government asked the Italian Ministry for the Environment to work together in addressing the reduction of energy consumption in order to reduce the emissions, the pollutants from one side and carbon dioxide from the other side. And they told us the energy consumption in China is about 40% in the building sector. We have to address energy consumption in the building sector, changing the designing of the buildings, working on the materials, working on the energy supply. And so we're designing together with Chinese government two buildings. One is in the Tsinghua University, and the second one is the new building on the Ministry for the Environment of China. The second building was developed together with World Bank. The lesson is very interesting because we were able to design a nice building, very beautiful, very efficient, able to reduce more or less 60% the energy consumption without reducing the performances of the building. It was a university in the heart of Tsinghua University. And the second building is an interesting combination of Italian inspiration and Chinese culture, where we built the new Ministry for the Environment of China. It's possible with innovative design, combining the designing with the use of light materials, with the use of energy supply systems combining high efficiency and renewables to change the trend of the energy consumption in the building sector. And this is what we are doing now in Europe and in Italy too. We are promoting the innovative designing in this sector. The second experience is about wastes. We had in the past, and we have today in the southern regions of Italy, a lot of problems in managing wastes. But at the same time, we had very important, innovative, and advanced experiences in many regions of Italy, in northern of Italy mainly, in recycling wastes, in recycling materials, in reducing the energy consumption, the use of raw materials, in enhancing the protection of the environment, thanks to the combination of the designing of new goods able to be fully recycled. We have a city in Italy, in Udine. Udine is the northern east of Italy, where 80% of urban wastes are recycled and are reused. And this is possible because they are focusing the consumption, the chain of consumption of goods in the area with the support of recycling goods. And again, this is a matter for the design, because designing goods able to supply the so-called circular economy is a way for protecting the environment, but also for exploring new ways, for new materials, for designing the goods we use every day. Thank you.
Marcel, thank you very much for these two very enlightening examples. Marcel, your perspective is obviously very different. Maybe you can give us.
Yeah, for me, it's nice to be in this group of people. Thank you for having me. I would like to share from this position two things which were important to me, and you know, which told me something which was. The first one I discovered a long time ago. The last one I discovered maybe 2 years ago. I was, I think, 1 year out of school. And there was this group of people in Holland, designers, and they made a group which was called Eternally Yours. Durability was their main focus. And this group was mainly surrounded around the Technical University of Delft. And they were all talking about recycling and to make products from better plastics and to dismantle products and, you know, all the technical stuff. And I thought it was wonderful, but I thought also, you know, this is not how people are gonna finally behave. It's important, but it's not my goal. There was one girl who did a project which was fairly interesting and disturbed me also a bit. She made a velvet, a beautiful velvet, like blue or so, but after scratching, after the velvet wore down, there, under the velvet, in the wearing down fabric, there became flowers, which is wonderful. It's like under this velvet, if the corners start to scratch, there was flowers under it. And I thought, that's so wonderful. But also I thought, like, what is really happening here, right? What is really happening? Is it so that we cannot accept things to grow old? Is it so that we are telling that, a scratched sofa is not right? Are we telling that, in fact, old is not good? So I understood at that point that where we think we have a material problem, more than that, we have a psychological problem. We think that a sofa with a scratch is not a good sofa. Which it's an experienced sofa. It's a wonderful sofa. It doesn't get better when, it gets better if your grandpa sit on it. So it's like, I understood that we have a kind of a baby face fixation. We want things to look like babies, fresh and beautiful and clean. And I changed something in my way to work, and from that day, which is like 20 years ago now, I implemented in all the things I'm doing, as well the idea and metaphors of the future, as well as also the metaphors and ideas from the past. Whether it's technology, whether it's materials, whether it is decoration, whether it's parts of culture. And so I create things which are never new. Because there is nothing which grows old more fast than the new. There is nothing which grows old more fast than the new. And so we have to start understanding that we should not look for the new. We should look for the real, for the important, for some things which really are connected to us already from the past, bring us to the future. We should not make objects without the past. We should not make orphans deliberately. We should make objects which are between our parents and our children. It's just what I do and what I learned 20 years ago. Another little insight I want to share, and I'll keep it quick because there's a lot of people here, is that it is difficult. It's difficult to wake up in the morning and think you're going to be so important that you're going to save the world. And I think a lot of people get disappointed about themselves because they think they're not going to make a difference. And so at some point I was discussing another subject with a friend of mine, which is biodiversity. And I understood from this idea that it's not important the one animal which is the best. It's important that there is a lot of animals, a lot of mistakes. The more mutations we make, the more chance that they will influence each other and one will come out. The first car was a stupid piece, right? And there was like thousands of different ideas, 3 wheels, motor in the back, motor on the side. All these things together made it work. So we don't need the best idea. I don't need to have the best solution, but we need 1,000 ideas. We need 1,000 solutions, and each of them have their own value, I think. That's how I do my work. That's why I wake up in the morning. That's why I'm excited about my work, and I think design will have to play a role in this quest we're facing. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcel. Giulio, can you...
Okay, so, I think that I already told before that sometimes I'm really upset because many companies are using this concept of sustainability more like a marketing concept than something real that is in DNA of the company. Yes, it's very fashionable sometimes to discuss about this, but I think that really today is very important to look more and more what we can do today and what we can do for the future. And the 2 elements are really very, very important for me, and in the last few years really I'm very, very involved in this problem. A few years ago I was invited in Sweden, and so I had just to make a show. And the first, I had some interviews, and the first question that all the journalists were asking to me, it was not what do you like or what are you doing and so, but what do you think about sustainability? And I have really about 10, 15 interviews, and all the journalists were, the first question it was about sustainability. So I was thinking that, okay, maybe there is something wrong from us, from Southern Europe, no? That when we think to do a new product, we think to do something that looks beautiful, that everyone like to have, that everyone like to see and to show and so. So I start to think to this, saying that maybe now we have really to totally change the way to do the project, not to start from the hand, to start from how we pack a product and to arrive to the first idea of the project. The other thing that really for me it was really very, very important, a few years ago there was a beautiful exhibition at the Beaubourg in Paris, Africa Remix. And a lot of young African artists, they made beautiful paintings, sculptures, using just all the materials, the recycled materials or the raw material that you can find in the street. And looking, and really there was some beautiful installation. So I start to think that really this problem is a worldwide problem. That means that everywhere in the world we can find interesting materials, interesting technique that maybe are used since many, many years to produce always the same thing, and maybe we can try to turn into contemporary design the use of this material and the use of this very fantastic artisanal way of working. So I started with this project that I call Cappellini Love, and we started a few years ago with the Fondazione Nelson Mandela in South Africa, using some raw materials and some recycled material that you can find in the streets in South Africa, and doing objects. The second one, it was last year, and in Saigon we made just some very contemporary and I hope beautiful objects using just algae and using again raw material and all the things that you can find in the street that normally are used just to do baskets or small boats. This year I make another collection of products in Peru with the Fondazione Don Bosco. Fondazione Don Bosco is an Italian foundation, and they take just people that normally are living in the street and they start to work the solid wood, the recycled wood that they can find from the old construction, and they made beautiful handmade objects. That means that thinking about sustainability is not only just a problem to use a recycled material, but it's really something that has to be in the DNA of the project, in the DNA of a company. That means it's a global, it's 360-degree problem. And I think that, you know, Marcel before was saying that, okay, for sure, now everybody cannot get up in the morning and say, okay, I can change the world. No? But I think that it's really very, very important that all of us, step by step, try really to take care of this problem. Because I think that, you know, more and more the end consumer are open. They want to know this chair, what is done, which is the material of this chair, is toxic or not toxic the material, and also in which way do you produce this material. This is again very, very important. I think that on one side the designer has really to take care of this problem. On the other side, I think that the industries producing products, they have really to tell to the end consumers what they are buying. This is very, very important, because sometimes maybe you see a beautiful product and after you discover that it's a toxic product. So I think that really there is very, very important to try to connect more and more, on one side, the research that is done in the university, in the laboratories and so, the companies that recycle material and the companies that produce just the final product. I think that this is absolutely very, very important, and step by step these three, and the designers that design the products for sure. So these four elements, they have really to become closer and closer and closer. I think that this is the only way just to solve the problem. And I think that again, we have to start. We have to start today. We have to start soon. This is very, very important. We cannot only speak about this problem thinking that it's not a problem that touches ourselves. Really, it's a problem that touches ourselves because we see, no? We are at the 10th of April and it seems to be like November in Milan. So that means that something wrong is really going on. And that means that really, I think that on one side, you know, the private industries, and on the other side, the creative minds, and on the other side, who is doing research, really they have to join more and more, and they have to work together. Because I think that this is really, today, the most important thing I always say is to be contemporary, and to be contemporary, it means to really take care of the problems that we have today. Because I think that a good designer has to try to give to the future, to the kids of today, a fantastic future with very good products, and we have to try really to give to them a better way of life. And I think that really the industry has really to take care not only to do nice product, but really to do real strong product, and product that really has not to change, but has to product that can change in a better way the world where we live. Thank you.
Thank you. I have nothing to say on design, except that I'm a consumer, obviously. But to one area I would like to connect some of my own experiences to design and sustainability. I had a great pleasure to live in Thailand for quite a few years. And it is in Thailand that I discovered something, which is, do not expect a country that is a developing country or a poorer country to be less interested in beautiful products, in creativity in terms of uses of space, uses of your environment. And for me, it was an eye-opener. As an economist, of course, you always try to optimize and maximize. But it was also for me an eye-opener in terms of how people, Thai people, cared about what they were using, how they were using, and they had open minds to learn and to approach problems very differently. Corrado mentioned before, actually, very much the current tension that exists. Very big global issues. So you mentioned China. What will China do in the future has an impact on all of us, but also very local, what you can do at the municipal level or in a regional level in Italy. I think this is in the space of the local to global that a lot of what the creative minds on this panel do can help build bridges and connections. Marcel raised an issue which we are struggling with at the World Bank. Sustainability means you care about issues of intergenerations, across generations. And I think many of us have done our work in the past, certainly as economists or development experts, trying to optimize this generation and help this generation. I think what we are discovering is actually that we want to have programs and policies that help this generation, but also builds opportunities and a better planet for the next generations. And I think products also, I very much liked, I have to say, I was very intrigued by the experience so far. I think it connected very much at an emotional level. So whatever we use our creativity for has much more than just a desirable appeal, but also an emotional connection. Finally, the last point I wanted to make really is an encouragement to all of you. And I think in that, Giulio made a very good point. In a way,
you may find sources of ingenuity, of creativity, by opening up to individuals and to societies that you may be unaware of or unused to. But one of the parts that is very interesting is then building that connection, as you mentioned, be it in South Africa, being with others, that enable you to look at it differently. But I am certain that if you go back in South Africa, they will absolutely remember your own contributions to those processes. And I think that element of it, which is that human connections, that's where creativity can help in sustainability. And it's not only about us being very careful buyers of products and caring about it, but it's also about building those connections. Thank you very much.
I had recently an interesting experience in a project related to eco-sustainability and natural material. I was working for L'Oréal, which is a company whose product touch directly your body because they produce shampoo and product for your hair. So they were interested to take a lot of care to this product and to launch a new line completely based on natural elements, natural components. So I had to design the shops for them, and they required to have all the shops and furniture based only on class A eco-sustainable material. So it was really hard because we were at the beginning of the research. Now the research in eco-sustainable material is much more advanced, and we have a lot of sophisticated, new, innovative material. But so we had to develop a lot of research in this sense to find the right material, because you can find material also for a soft material based on soya, for example. And if you take care, there are today on the market a lot of material which are completely natural. So we had to adopt this material, and not only they required not only the furniture and the environment, so the interior, but also the factory producing this furniture has to be a factory completely eco-sustainable with solar panel and class A, completely class A. So I agree with Giulio. A lot of time it's a marketing issue or a communication issue. So many companies that in the past used to produce plastic chair now are involved in the trend of new wooden liquid wood or something like that. It's a little bit ridiculous sometimes because the impact of a chair is very limited, and if we continue to produce soap and bottle and a lot of other products that you can see in any department store in plastic material, you can understand that the impact of a plastic chair it's a minimum. But anyway, in this sense, when the feeling and also could start from a marketing issue. In my case, I think was also a marketing and communication issue. But at the end, the impact was a really deep impact in the moment that it touched also the factory, and all the complete cycle was covered. I think so. In this moment, eco-sustainability is an important issue. Even if in Italy we have the minister, you know that we are a country really devastated by pollution, it's a hard job for us because the sea, because our land, and also the food we eat in many cases has a lot of problems. So I think that the future, and for our son, this kind of issue will be more and more important, of course.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to give the Minister an opportunity to respond to that, but I'll also put a question to you. You spoke of improving the performance of buildings through various means, through intelligent design, which is what we're talking about today, design, through technology. However, there's a problem in the sense that as you improve the performance of buildings and they consume less, actually what you're effectively doing is freeing up more money. You're making the, okay, people spend less on their electricity bills because their buildings are so much more efficient, but then probably going to go and fly on holiday to the other side of the world and pollute possibly even more. And that's, I mean, it's stated in a very simplistic way, but actually it's a complex economic problem which is known as rebound, or a kind of a paradox in a way. And of course, as far as I can see, the only possible solution to this is actually through policy, is actually through fundamentally restructuring the society that we live in to understand what the true cost, in a much fuller sense, of our energy footprint is on the environment. And I wanted to know from you, as somebody who is actually actively involved in shaping these policies, whether this is something that, what your perspective is, like how it's actually possible, because of course, to say that simply technology is going to solve the problem is an extremely simplistic argument. Maybe we can have the other mic.
Thank you. Yes, we need an integrated approach or comprehensive approach for integrating the different sectors and different policies. This is what we should have. It's a very difficult challenge. I believe that looking at the experience we had in the last 20 years, we can work following two parallel approaches. One is the bottom-up approach. We have to improve different experiences in different sectors in order to identify the solutions, to test the feasibility from the point of view of the industrial activities, economical activities, and of course, environmental. And this is what is happening in all the sectors, because when we look at the plastic sector, recycling from one side and production of biodegradable and compostable plastics, this is a way. This is what is happening in the building sector, as I said. This is what is happening in the designing of the cars, for example, in Europe. All the car manufacturers have to design the car in order to recycling all the components of the car. This is a very important sector, and this is for many sectors. On the other side, we need rules. We need a program. We adopted 2 months ago the national plan of Italy for the decarbonization of the Italian economy. And this is a program crossing all the sectors, the energy from one side, agriculture on the other side, and also the public awareness, because we have to help the consumers in choosing the best from the point of view of the recycling, and in this way we should improve the designing of recycling goods. At the same time, and this is the last the last example I want to show. We are working with the Italian industrial companies in all the sectors in promoting the carbon footprinting of the processes and of the products. This is very important because this is a process involving the companies in designing with low energy consumption, with low carbon emissions, and this is another way for approaching the issue. But I want to underline this is a complex challenge. We need to combine the experiences coming from the field, from the industrial sector, and the rules coming from the government.
I don't know if anybody has any. It was quite interesting before when we were just chatting out here that actually it was an interesting exchange between Stefano and Marcel, where Stefano, you said we shouldn't be here talking about design. This is actually the last of our problems right now. There are some really serious problems out there regarding the environment, regarding the seas and so on. And Marcel said, no, we should really be, design is actually critically important, or at least that was the implication of what you were saying. And I wonder whether it would be interesting to hear you maybe unpack that a little bit more, what you envision as the role of design in all of this.
Yeah, I think, if I was a biologist, I would talk about biology and maybe sustainability, but as I am a designer, I will talk about design and sustainability, because I think there's a lot to say and there's a lot to do. What I tried to say in my first little part of the speech is that designers have, I often say to journalists, I am an engineer, but you shouldn't tell no one. Because of course we are engineers. We're creating technical solutions, materials, and all this stuff. That's our day-to-day business. But so there we have a stake in solving material sustainability issues. But we have another aspect in our field, which is us to go out to the world, be an inspiration, or be an example, or be a warning, inspire the world for a certain thinking, show how life can be, unique, fabulous, different in a wonderful way. And I think that's maybe a way more important part for sure the type of designers we are here today. I mean, there's designers in all fields of life. I mean, we are a type of designers where, we are the poets, we should make life wonderful. We should make, if life is there, we should make it worthwhile. I mean, there's other people who work on the nuts and bolts, the packaging of stuff. And I think we have a responsibility to talk, therefore, about the psychology of people. What is the dream of life? Who are we going to be tomorrow? And I think it's this dream which we build every day with the pieces we make and with the communication we have with it. And again, that's not about technology only. That's really about other issues which are really connecting to an audience on a different level, but I think extremely important, which doesn't make the other less important. But I think this is our path. This is what we should do.
Stefano, do you agree?
Recently I had a lecture based on the fact that today the society changes very rapidly. So the design has to adapt his language and his expression to the changing of our society. And I analyzed in a lecture how in the last 20 years my language was changed according with the changing of our society. So for example, I am very well known for plastic product I design. And I think in the 90s, this kind of product expressed the best the the society of the 90s, which was a society economically growing very fast. We call the Reaganian hedonism, usually the 90s, to underline such kind of successful period for our Western economy, but also for worldwide economy. At the end, also, for example, if you consider Apple computer, were in the beginning, they were very colorful, and color express certain kind of humor, certain kind of feeling. At the end of the year of the 90s, beginning of year 2000, we had a first big changing. The color stopped, and plastic product usually became black and white or transparent, Apple computer also, and natural material, aluminium. It happened in my job, coming back to natural material, traditional material, ceramic, steel instead of plastic. But it happened, it was a general feeling of the society. There was the war in Iraq, so it was a society a little bit depressed. We feel a first crisis. After globalization, we had the first changing again. So a new successful period for our company, for our economy. And in 2008, another changing, dramatical for the financial crisis, with the new theme of sustainability, natural material, and so on. So I don't think that designer could condition the society. The society and the economy, of course, influence our job. We are people with long antennas, and we have to be able to understand such kind of changing and to translate into our object the changing of our society.
Cyril, maybe you could just say a few words about, you talked about the role of development, and of course development is an extremely broad term, and and also quite, in many ways, obviously there's a huge conflict at stake here, in the sense that if everybody becomes as developed as, it's a very easy argument to make. But
I would like actually to comment in a way, I think, around the policies towards sustainability by many actors have traditionally been seen as constraints, right? They set boundaries for what you can do. I think what we're seeing now is probably that the same policies that were created or that were initially thought as being setting boundaries and being constraining, including on design creativity, is probably at the time when we question, because of part of the global crisis, is probably maybe changing and going towards something different, which is the role of design, the role of thinking of different products going forward. So I was very struck by your example, and I was a bit wondering, from a World Bank perspective and on development, I have to tell you that the single country in the world today that puts the most renewable energy on a grid today is actually China. There's plenty of other things that China does at the same time, which is putting a thermal power plant on the system as well at the same time. But I think what is really for me fascinating and is an opportunity going forward is I think that be it design, be it those engineers, be it those that look into issues of society, that suddenly a sustainable future may not be an unattractive future, because that was very much in the glorious days of growth, if you want. Whatever constraint you wanted to put on that was seen as a negative. And I think from the conversation today, there is a lot of saying, no, it can be an opportunity, and it is already an opportunity. Maybe it is, for the World Bank perspective, what we want to make sure is that countries jump across generations of issues and problems. You know, The best-known development challenge of the 1960s was called the India telephone system. There were studies that showed that India would have a telephone per village only by 2030, 2050. Guess what? Mobile telephony happened. How long did it take? A couple of years. And I think in a way, many of the products we consume today, or the way we look, not only at products, but at how we live, where we live, are truly in a state of flux. At the World Bank on climate change, two areas we look at, for instance, right now, is cities. The first time ever we really look at global cities as such. 70% of CO2 emissions are from cities. Second area, been a big issue over the last few years, is food and agriculture. So these are areas, but in all of these areas, it is, I personally, or I don't see the same constraint or the same resistance to change that I saw in the 1990s when, let's say, we were questioning growth and going towards more shared concepts of growth or the economy.
Okay, we have, unfortunately, we have to wrap up quite quickly, but there's a question from Twitter that I think, Giulio, is perfect for you. How can modern architecture influence consumer behavior towards more sustainable lifestyle?
But I think that really the influence can be very, very big, because I think that today designers and architects have to look how the habits of the end consumer change a lot. That means I always say that more and more we have not just to do design objects to look at, but design objects to touch, to live with. This is the most important thing. We have to think how end consumers live, so we have to think to do products in the right scale, products that can live into apartments of 60, 80 square meters, not only in huge villas of 600 square meters. And also to inform the public, because this is, I think, the most important thing. I told already before, it's very important that each designer and each company producing products tells to the end consumer that in which material is done this product, and if we use materials, natural materials, and which kind of material we use. Now, you know, Ms. van der Rohe was used to say that each material, natural or artificial, is good if we know very well and if it's well used. I think that this is very, very important. To give information, to try to show to the end consumer what there is on the back of the creation of a product is really very, very important. And I think that can be really the way to get close, to have the end consumer closer to this problem, and for them to understand companies and designers that are doing serious products, and companies and designers that they are doing not so serious product and might be copies. I think that this is really very important, and it's something that is quite easy to do. And I think that today, frankly speaking, we don't need to do a new table, a new chair, a new sofa. There are thousands of nice tables, chairs, sofas in the market. Today, if we do a new table, a new chair, a new sofa, or a new building, we have for sure to try to do something that is better of what we made 10 years ago, and something again that on one side make people smiling, on the other side take care of the real problem that is a global problem. It's a problem for now, for us today, and for our kids tomorrow morning. So I think that the influence can be really very, very strong.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much.
We could do one last.
Okay, we have enough time for one last.
Everyone can do last closing remarks.
Okay, but if we can keep it short, then there's time for a closing remark from each of you, if you'd like to add a few words.
Thank you very much. I believe that is enough.
Yeah, I think Stefano, you are so right when you talk about how we are the antennas of this little society here. But I think it's so important that we are not only antennas receiving information, but more than that, we send information every day, and we we really are able to inspire this world with really messages which we care about, and I think that's maybe more important sometimes than what we can receive from the world.
I think that we can really do something and not only speak about this problem.
And do that on a global stage, both local and global.
I think in the end it's important to discuss any issue, but we have to save Italy because we are in a very dangerous situation.
I know very
Good-
I think
good
so.
point.
Anyway, I hope that we can meet in the next 3 years and maybe just saying, okay, this small problem has been solved, this other problem has been solved, and so and so, step by step.
Maybe if this roundtable continues tomorrow, maybe we can decide to not have water in plastic bottles, but just from a can.
Good point.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.